You know what it is, you know who it is. We're back. Brandon Gallagher here with another video. Today, we're talking about the top 5 reasons why your conditioning sucks. Let's check it out. Top 5 reasons why your conditioning sucks. Number 1, inefficient breathing. A lot of us get caught up when we're doing conditioning, or we're doing conditioning type workouts, running, biking, rowing, anything that has to do with long distance endurance. We breathe through the mouth, right? And the most efficient breathing, and one of the tools that we're going to use to kind of help us with the rest of these reasons is nasal breathing, right? So we want to get as good as we can at breathing through our nose as often as possible. There's kind of been a lot of research done about this and hype around it in the last couple of years. Books like The Oxygen Advantage and a lot of these books that have come out show that breathing through your nose is very good for the rest of us, like the rest of our body, and helps us with our conditioning. We've even seen some people go as far as taping their mouth shut. They sleep with their mouth taped shut, just trying to force themselves into breathing habits, and it creates long-term sustainable benefits, not only in conditioning, but just everyday life. So inefficient breathing, mouth breathing, no awareness of their breathing or the ability to breathe effectively and understand it. This is one of the biggest issues I see within conditioning, and this is something that has to be worked on, right? Whether it's taping your mouth shut or just building the awareness, it's something that has to be worked on. Number 2 is pacing. No awareness of pace, time, output, anything like that. People will just say, I'm gonna go do some conditioning. They'll go really hard for 30 seconds on a bike, and then they hop off. They'll do it again, they'll hop off. Or they'll go hard for 30 seconds, and then they'll just pace out the rest of the 5 minutes, and then they'll just it'll look something like this, and then it just goes all the way down for their output, right? Or they don't understand their pace, and they go on a run. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go on a 2-mile run, and they just go really hard as long as they can, and then they start to dive off, and they just hang on for dear life at the end. One of the best things we can do for conditioning is pace, understand our pace, learn our pace, feel our pace, understand our output. When can we put out? When do we need to dial it back a little bit? What's our good pace for this amount of time? What's a good pace for specific amounts of rounds or times and things like that? And this is the number 1 thing that's going to help us in progressing, which I'll get to a little bit later. Number 3, not enough time in each zone. So if we're familiar with physiology, we understand that there are energy systems that have to do with training, right? So in those energy systems, there's different time ranges, and I know there's been some research that says that maybe they're not split up as specifically as they are, but for the sake of this video, we'll make it easy. We have the 3 different energy systems, and we need time in each of them. We need to understand the feeling of alactic capacity. We need to understand the extreme end of the other way, which is oxidative or long distance endurance stuff, or long timed endurance stuff, where we're breathing, and a lot of that is in the oxidative energy system. So spending time in all these things, and what does that mean in layman's terms, right? So long distance running, sprints, and then intervals or timed runs, shorter runs that are kind of in between both of them, right? So you're not going to run a 100-meter sprint as fast as you're going to run a mile, but you're also not going to run a mile as slow as you're going to run a 3-mile run. And all of those have different benefits, but we need time in each of them to get really good and understand awareness and pace, and then start to understand, what do I lack in? Because this is kind of, as we bring it back to, as I always say, the assessment is key. When we start to find out where we lack, then we can start to build each of them up from the ground up. Number 4, not enough consistency. They only do it when it's necessary. And I see a lot of athletes do this. So I see a lot of people who, outside of camps, they don't do any conditioning. Outside of, getting ready for a specific event, then they'll start on like a 2 or 3 month, fast track conditioning, where they're doing sprints and all these different styles of conditioning that you'll see, and EMA, whatever. And this is something that, if you want to get really good at conditioning, it has to be done year round, and it has to be done just like you would do strength conditioning, right? This is just as important, if not more important, for health, long-term benefits of health, but also for building an aerobic base like you would a strength base. You're not just going to stop benching, and then as soon as you get close to a bench, or a meet, you're going to start benching for 3 months and then expect to be your strongest, right? You got to work on that stuff year round. And just like that with strength training, we need that same thing with aerobic capacity. It should be done at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then when we get closer to competition, we'll start to work on that, more explosive output, that alactic short time, alactic capacity work, or that high output work or power output. Last but not least, no progressions throughout, right? So people do conditioning, they don't understand repeatability, they don't build an effort, they don't build pace, they don't decreased pace, they don't find themselves in these different zones, and they don't, give themselves an opportunity to get better or push themselves to get better. The biggest thing with conditioning is it's just like strength training. That's what I wrote right here. It needs to be done just like regular strength training, right? So we need progressions, we need consistency, we need time to get good at these zones. We need to spend a lot of time in these zones and understand the different types of conditioning, the alactic, all these different sources of conditioning that are going to help us get better as a whole. We need to understand our pace. What's a mile time look like for me? What can I push? What's slow? What's fast? What's a 3 mile time look like for me? What's slow? What's fast? And understanding that, so when you get into competitive atmosphere, you can put out and understand where you are better. And then, the first one, like I said, is breathing. Breathing is the first thing. It's the only thing that keeps us, not the only thing, but one of the most important things that keeps us alive. So getting efficient at it and understanding it and learning to breathe through your belly, breathing through your nose, and just becoming really efficient is going to help all of this together and get you a better aerobic base, which is going to translate, in my opinion, the most important thing in aerobic base, and translate to better everything else in the gym and competition. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, I'm always here to answer them. Aerobic capacity, I talk about this stuff all the time. If you guys need any help with it, understanding it, I have a video on YouTube that I can put out as well. I broke down the entire progression there, and I've done a couple other little videos since then. But as always, I'll see you guys next week. Peace.